She stood in my driveway and told me flat as a judge, "That hideous metal contraption is a lawsuit waiting to happen, and you will remove it by Friday or we will." I smiled like a man who'd spent 20 years telling other people where to stand and how to hold a shovel because smiling buys you time, and time was exactly what I needed. But inside, something cold clicked. This wasn't about sleepy rules or curb appeal. It was about a woman who'd turned petty power into a profession. I'm Mac McGregor, retired major engineer by trade, rancher by stubbornness, and that hideous thing was a cattle guard, proud and solid, set in concrete at the mouth of our old easement. The smell of hot steel and the taste of sweat still lingered on my gloves when Karen Thompson, HOA, President pastel dress, righteous scowl, parked herself on the gravel shoulder with a clipboard and the kind of condescension money buys. Beside her, Gary, her nodding lieutenant, clutched his pages like armor. I had my welding mask pushed up, sun on my forehead, ranch stretching behind me like a promise. She read from Section 7, subsection B, like it was scripture. No approval, no exceptions. Fines, removal orders, her voice syrupy and cruel. The envelope she left taped to the steel 2 days later was worse, a $1,000 fine and a $100 a day threat until the offending structure was gone. And a chilling last line about liens and foreclosure. It felt like someone trying to sell me my own farm, one bureaucratic paragraph at a time. Act 1, the spark and the blow-up. This was never just about metal bars in the ground. This was a declaration, one that hit me in the gut. Because Sarah and I had chased stability our whole lives. After decades of moving with the Army, we'd finally planted roots in a 100-acre patch of old Texas, right where an old recorded easement met the manicured edge of Willow Creek Estates houses that smelled of fresh paint and certainty. The easement, I'd learned, was forever recorded in 1928, perpetual 30 feet wide, and explicitly allowed necessary improvements, including but not limited to fences, gates, and cattle guards. Jedediah Miller, bless his practical heart, had written my permission a lifetime ago. So when Karen threatened, I could have screamed or shoved the clipboard into the nearest rose bush, been dramatic, been wrong. Instead, I did what Major McGregor does best. I collected facts. I dug out the deed chain, drove to the county records office, threaded the microfilm, watched the 1928 deed flicker onto the reader. There it was, plain as daylight, the clause that saved the ranch. I printed a certified copy, paid for proof that couldn't be shouted down, and called a friend who owed me favors in all the right courtrooms. Enter Act 2, the counterpunch and the unexpected allies. David Chen, JAG. Coors legal bulldog and my old war buddy answered on the first ring and pronounced it a Michael Jordan slam dunk. Lawyers use sports metaphors when they want you quiet and confident. We didn't go soft. David's response letter was polite, surgical, and merciless. Quote, "The deed attach, the certified copy, CC the HOA's registered agent, and the title insurer, put the people who hold the purse strings on notice." Checkmate, his one-word subject line read in my inbox, and I felt a rare sort of giddy relief. But the real twist came from the people I didn't expect, neighbors. An IT guy named Mark, fed up with petty fines for trash can colors, slid me a screenshot of Karen's passive-aggressive Facebook post where she characterized the cattle guard as dangerous. Then, an elderly local Arthur Henderson chimed in with a single sentence. His father knew Jedediah Miller cattle had crossed that road for generations. That voice, old, steady, respected, shifted the conversation faster than any legal filing could. People began messaging quietly at first, then boldly stories of garden gnome fines, wheelchair ramp, refusals, paint code hysteria. A small rebellion stitched itself together by shared irritation and a hunger for basic decency. Karen didn't stop, of course she didn't. She doubled down with a fraudulent lien and then unbelievably hired a crew to come rip my cattle guard out on HOA letterhead. That's when the plan sharpened. David said, "Don't call them back. Let them come. Let them put tools on your property. Let the trespass be plain and recorded." I set cameras GoPro on an oak branch trail, cams in cedar bark. My phone for the close-up, and I drove to the sheriff's office to brief the patrol sergeant. I handed him the deed, the letter, the lien. "Record it," he said. "We'll know who to call." It became a slow-motion trap. The truck rolled up Bill, the contractor shrugged, the chains clanked. Then Karen's SUV came barreling in heels in fury and entitlement. She barked orders, called me a lawbreaker, called her covenants supreme. Bill hesitated, paper in hand, then took a step, just one step, toward the cattle guard, and I dialed 911. The sound of the siren later was the most satisfying thing I've heard in a long time, the law arriving with both a badge and a gravity no HOA binder could summon. Deputy Miller, of all names, handled it with a quiet that cut an argument into facts. He asked for IDs, read the documents, listened to the contractor's nervous call, and then looked at Karen like she'd just confounded a headline. Trespass. Attempted property damage. Charges were filed. She left in disgrace. The contractor slunk away. The cameras had it all, every word, every shove, every attempt to weaponize municipal force against a private man with proof. Act 3. The unmasking and the cleanup. In court, David was the kind of calm that files into a judge's memory. He laid the chronology out with the brutal efficiency of someone who'd seen worse and would not be intimidated. The judge granted a temporary injunction, ordered the HOA to withdraw the lien at their expense, and opened the door to discovery. What came next was almost poetic. Emails and minutes revealed a pattern: selective enforcement, petty vendettas, and Karen's own memo. We don't need lawyers every time, the smoking gun of malice. A vote of no confidence at an HOA meeting was more cathartic than a jury verdict. Residents rose and told their stories, and with one collective shove, she was out, removed, as president, stripped of authority, her kingdom collapsing into the small, embarrassed figure she'd become. The settlement terms were simple and clean: HOA to pay legal fees, rescind fines, issue a written apology, and donate a symbolic $5,000 to a charity I chose, Wounded Warrior Project. I suggested it. The board agreed. It wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about standing up to a petty tyranny and making sure your neighbor isn't the next target. So what did I learn? Because every story with a win still has a residue. I learned that law is a tool, but so is patience. You can't fight pride with louder pride. You fight it with paperwork, witnesses, and community. I learned that people who hide behind rules sometimes fear history more than law. They fear being shown wrong in public. And most importantly, I learned that a single neighbor's courage can break a culture of small cruelties if you have the patience to gather the facts and the grace to let the law do its job. There's a moral in there, quiet and not sermon-like. The real covenant that matters between people is respect, not rule books. Dignity matters more than decorative uniformity. Jedediah Miller couldn't have known he was writing a century-later lesson into a deed, but he did land, has rights that survive ego, and promises on paper can be practical shields against petty power. The end felt gloriously ordinary. The cattle guard stayed. My herd wandered across it at dusk like nothing had happened. The new HOA board met with humility and a genuine appetite to listen. Mr. Henderson sitting at the table, Mark quietly helping with tech neighbors, talking again over casserole dishes instead of whispering in Facebook threads. Karen left quietly. No dramatic exit, just a small, private vanishing. Sometimes karma isn't loud. Sometimes it's the soft sound of a slammed courthouse door in a quiet neighborhood meeting where people finally speak. So I'll leave you with this, because the last picture I want you to hold is the one where the law, good neighborliness, and a little stubbornness combine to fix what's broken. Was I vindictive? Maybe. Was justice served? You tell me. Where do we draw the line between standing up for your rights and gloating in someone's downfall, especially when that someone is human, flawed, and frankly embarrassed? Tell me, what would you have done? Was I right to press charges? Was Sarah right to counsel patience? Have you ever been on the wrong end of a petty authority? An HOA, a landlord, a boss? And what did you do about it? Drop your story in the comments. Argue with me. Cheer me on. Or tell me where I should have been kinder. I want to hear your take on justice, on limits of power, and on whether a neighborhood should be stitched together by rules or by respect. Share your thoughts, right, wrong, or somewhere in between, and tell us if you've ever had to stand your ground the way we did on a hot Texas afternoon when a few steel bars turned into a battleground for decency.